That little device you're probably watching this on, or at the very least have sitting right next to you, well, it has one of the wildest origin stories in all of modern technology. So let's dive in and trace the unbelievable journey of the mobile phone, from a clunky, impossible dream to the supercomputer that lives in all of our pockets.
So, how did we even get here? I mean, how did this sleek piece of glass and metal in your hand, your literal window to the world, actually come to be? Well, it's a story that involves a breakthrough that felt like pure science fiction, a legendary corporate rivalry, and a series of leaps that absolutely changed society forever. To really get your head around the scale of this revolution, just look at this comparison. Back in 1946, the absolute state-of-the-art mobile service was an 80-pound box that lived in your car. That's 36 kilograms, and to make a call, you had to get an operator to manually connect you. The difference between then and now is just staggering. We went from a car-bound novelty for a handful of people to a global, instant supercomputer for billions. But before any of this was real, it was pure fantasy. The whole idea of a personal portable phone was the kind of thing you'd only see in the pages of a comic book. Like Dick Tracy's famous two-way wrist radio. It was a super cool idea, but with the technology of the day, it was fundamentally impossible. And here's exactly why it was impossible. See, the early radiophone systems all used a single, really powerful transmitter to try and cover an entire city. That meant you had to stay within its range for your whole call. If you drove too far, poof, the call was gone. And even worse, only a few people could use the service at the same time because there just weren't enough radio channels. The dream of a phone for everyone, yeah, it was pretty much dead on arrival. That is, until one of the most elegant and brilliant engineering concepts of the 20th century completely changed the game. The solution wasn't about building a more powerful transmitter. It was about using thousands and thousands of weaker ones. And this right here is the idea that unlocked everything. It was first proposed by Bell Labs way back in 1947. Can you believe that? The cellular concept basically divided a city into a honeycomb of small areas or cells. Each cell gets its own low-power tower. Now, here's the magic trick. Two people in different cells on opposite sides of town could use the exact same frequency without interfering with each other. And just like that, you could suddenly have thousands of calls happening at once, not just a few. Okay, but what happens when you drive from one of these cells to another? This is the absolute magic of the handoff. As you're moving, the network is constantly monitoring your signal strength. The second it sees you're leaving one cell and entering another, it seamlessly, and I mean instantly, switches your call to the new tower, all without you ever noticing a thing. It's this invisible dance that makes mobile communication actually work. So, with the cellular concept finally in place, the race was on to build the first true portable mobile phone. The first generation, or 1G, was about to arrive, and boy, would it become an icon of 1980s wealth and ambition. And this is where the story becomes legendary. Standing on a street in New York City, a Motorola researcher named Martin Cooper made history. He used this prototype handheld phone to call his chief rival over at Bell Labs, the very company that had invented the cellular concept, just to tell them he was calling from a real, portable cell phone. Talk about an all-time great power move. But that first prototype was, well, let's just say it was incredibly primitive. We're talking about a device that weighed nearly 4.5 pounds. It was nicknamed the Brick for a very good reason, and it gave you a whopping 30 minutes of talk time, right before you had to charge it for 10 hours. The final phone that actually hit the market in 1983 wasn't much better. Because it was on an analog signal, literally anyone with a cheap radio scanner could listen in on your calls. Criminals could easily clone your phone's identity and make calls on your dime. And after costing over $100 million to develop, the whole experience was still, well, it was rough. The next big leap forward was the second generation, or 2G. And this wasn't just an upgrade, it was a total reinvention. This is the moment the mobile phone started its journey from a yuppie toy to a tool for absolutely everyone. The jump to digital meant that calls were suddenly crystal clear, and, for the very first time, they were secure. But the biggest change that 2G brought to the world had absolutely nothing to do with making calls. That's right, texting. The first SMS was sent back in 1992, and it was almost just an afterthought in the 2G standard. But it completely redefined communication, especially for a younger generation. All of a sudden, you had this quiet, quick, and cheap way to stay in touch, and it created an entirely new language of shortcuts and emoticons. The other massive leap with 2G was security. By going digital, networks could finally encrypt calls, and you can see what a huge jump that was. The era of casually eavesdropping on phone calls was officially over. Your conversations were finally private, which really paved the way for the phone to become the truly personal device it is today.
Okay, so with voice and text pretty much conquered, the next great frontier was, of course, the internet. From this point on, the story of the phone is really the story of data and our relentless quest for more and more speed.
And just look at how fast things started to accelerate. 3G came along in 2001, and it finally made browsing the web on your phone a usable experience. Then 4G showed up in 2009 and gave us the bandwidth for high-def video streaming, which didn't just let us watch movies, it created entire economies for YouTubers and influencers. And now, 5G is rolling out, promising speeds so fast they could change entire industries.
So let's just break down what each G really gave us. 3G's efficient packet switching is what brought us the mobile web. 4G's all-IP network treated voice just like any other kind of data, which led to super clear voice over LTE calls and that smooth HD video we all love. And 5G, well, its near zero latency isn't just about faster downloads. It's about enabling the future of augmented reality, a massive Internet of Things, and even self-driving cars.
So where do we possibly go from here? The phone has already conquered the cellular network on the ground, but the next step is to connect it to the sky itself.
While, believe it or not, 6G is already in development for a rollout around 2030. But the revolution that's happening right now is satellite integration. Companies are building networks to let regular, unmodified smartphones talk directly to satellites in orbit. We're already seeing the start of this with emergency SOS features on new iPhones, finally solving that age-old problem of having zero signal when you're in a remote area.
Just think about that for a second. In the span of a single human life, we went from a phone that was literally tethered to a car to a device that's tethered to the entire planet and soon to space itself. It has been an absolutely incredible journey. The only real question left is, what on earth does the next lifetime of innovation even look like?